Okay, public speaking for beginners, part 2. Now, if you haven't watched the first video, make sure you go back, watch the first video for 4 tips on how to approach public speaking if you're a beginner. And I use the word beginner kind of loosely because I consider myself a beginner as well. And all a beginner is someone who's learning how to do something better. And I'm always a student, so in some ways I still think of myself as a beginner speaker because I'm learning from people who are more advanced, who are better than I am, and I'm always a student. So don't let the title make you think, oh, geez, I'm a beginner. No, we're always beginners. So part 2 of these tips are going to help you to be a better speaker on stage, be a better speaker when it's conversational, if you're in a meeting, wherever you are. Use these tips to help you. They all begin with the letter R today. The first R is reps. I'm a fitness guy. I like to work out, and reps stand for repetitions. So if I want to build muscle, I want to stick between 8 to 12 repetitions of a weight, whether it's for legs or for upper body. And reps is just repeating a process over and over again to get stronger. And that's what you do as a speaker. You want to keep speaking. And it sounds so simple, but a lot of times I will coach people that say, how much do you practice? How much should I practice? Just get your reps in, get your practice in, and make it so much so that, oh my gosh, I'm practicing again. Sometimes you'll get sick of it. I get sick of it too. But what that means, when you put in the repetition, when you get on that stage, when you get in front of a live audience, when someone's paying you to speak, you will be that much better. You'll be ready because you put in all of the work in practice. 2 ways to do your own reps that I found very helpful. Number 1 is join an organization called Toastmasters. Toastmasters is a worldwide organization where you can go and you can practice public speaking, and you can always get better because you're practicing speeches, you're practicing stories. And even though I am a professional speaker, I've used it even to this day, not only to help other speakers, but to practice my own speeches as well. So Toastmasters is around, it's there, low cost to join a club and practice your speaking, get your reps in. The second way that I use is sometimes I'll just go to a dictionary and I'll pick out a word and I'll just try to speak on it for 30 seconds to a minute extemporaneously. I will try to come up with a story that relates to the word and I'll just talk it out. And that helps me to just practice taking a word, practice it, and just get better at telling stories. And when you do that, you practice speaking and you will get better as you go along. So Toastmasters and the dictionary. Now, the first R was talking about reps, getting in your repetitions. This one is about as you tell your stories, as you give your speeches. The second R stands for relive. You want to relive your stories. You don't want to just retell your stories. And one of the best ways to relive your stories is to act as if it's happening in the present moment. So as opposed to saying, I went to the airport and I saw my mother. I'm walking into the airport. I see my mom at the top of the escalator. She comes down. She gives me a big hug. So you see what I did there? I just took a past tense narration and I made it a present tense story. I acted like I saw my mom still at the top of the escalator. That's a part of a story that I actually tell in some of my speeches. I want to relive those stories so people that are in the audience can relive it with me. We don't have the benefit of the Hollywood movie screen where people can live the action. You have to be that for them. And so as you relive your stories, you tell it. Sometimes I do present tense. Sometimes I had a line of dialogue. So I'll say, my mom looked at me and she said, or my friend looked at me and he said this. I looked at her like, oh my gosh. And I have times where I'm actually reliving my story. And that may sound like an advanced tool, but you can use it from your very first speech. If you've never given a speech before, you can still say, you know what? I'm going to practice reliving my stories, telling my stories as if they're happening now. Adding present tense to your speeches is an easy way to do that. Relive your stories. This next one is hard. It sounds easy, but it's really hard. The next R is record and review. Every time you speak, either audio or video, record yourself speaking and watch it. If you don't watch your speeches, if you don't like to listen to your own speeches to say, how can I do better? How can I improve? What are some of the tendencies that I have that I need to get rid of? If you don't want to watch your speeches, if you don't want to listen to yourself speak, why would you expect anyone else to want to listen or watch you speak? It's a cringe worthy process sometimes. I don't know why. I think we're just self-critical, but it's important. It's important to listen to what you've done. Listen to the content of the stories. Listen to the way the audience reacts to the stories. Watch your mannerisms. Maybe you have certain things that you do too much. I watched a speech I gave, and it was kind of crazy because I was in front of a big crowd and I basically didn't use my right hand at all. I gesticulated, I motioned with my left hand only, and my right hand was down. And that's something I never would have noticed had I not actually watched my recording, because sometimes I use a clicker for slides and I happen to be just motioning with one hand. But just because I had a clicker in one hand doesn't mean I couldn't use both hands to gesture. That's just an example, one small example of how recording your speech, watching it, reviewing it, helps you to become better with the way you look, the way you move, the way you speak. So you have to record and review all of your speeches. So even if it's just on a phone, just record the audio. If it's an event where you can't really record, maybe it's a privacy issue, just record for your own viewing or listening so that you can get better as a speaker. And finally, the last R is read. It's okay to read some notes as you speak. You may have been told that you have to memorize your speech, or you can never use notes when you speak. You don't sound professional when you speak. I know speakers who make 5 figures consistently who've used notes when they speak during paid speeches. Listen, don't be ashamed to have a cue card with some words if you need it. I watched a TED Talk this police officer gave once, I forgot his name, and he basically had cue cards and he was sliding through on his TED Talk, and he got an ovation at the end because he simply shared his viewpoints. He added value to the audience with what he shared, and he wasn't afraid to say, okay, I have my notes here. No, he had his notes with him. Now, the caveat I would say with that is don't have a big piece of paper where you've written out your speech word for word. Cue cards with some key words, if you need it, is okay, especially when you're starting out. Don't feel pressure to memorize or never have notes. Unnecessary. So if you're starting out speaking, remember these 4 R's. Let me know as you're practicing, as you're speaking, are they helping you? Are there things that you need more help with? Please let me know. I'm your coach and I'm here to help.